Is it possible to animate 30 Pokemon in 30 days?
I mean, I guess technically if you just draw a 2-frame doodle each day, it really isn't that hard, but you know that's not what I'm talking about.
Can you make something good enough to put on a portfolio if you're animating one of these little guys every single day for a month straight?
Little did I know that this would lead to one of the most exhausting months of my life, arguably harder than my actual design degree. But the end results? Mostly worth it. Mostly.
But first, the rules. How do you fairly choose which Pokemon to animate out of the 1,000+ options when there are so many to choose from? Surely it's kinda cheating if you only choose Pokemon like Voltorb and Electrode when there's fuckers like this out there? Well, that's where this lovely website comes in. You can click generate and it'll give you a random Pokemon each time, meaning we have an equal chance of getting something nice and simple like Staryu, or something that will push me to my creative limits like Buzzwole. Spoilers, we didn't get Buzzwole, and if we did, I would have just cancelled the entire challenge because how the fuck do you draw this guy? On the very first day, I actually think we got pretty lucky landing on Trapinch as our first Pokemon. Considering the fact that we have to both illustrate and animate these in a single day, Pokemon with simpler shapes are much nicer to work with. When you want to animate some artwork, you have to create the artwork with the animation in mind, meaning that we want to make sure we have separate legs, separate body parts, separate head, all of that. And all on separate layers too. I've had to animate flat PNGs for clients before, and I get closer and closer to an early grave every single time I get an animation request, open up the PSD, and it's just a single flattened layer labeled fuck you. When it comes to actually illustrating the Pokemon, today we'll be using Adobe Illustrator. My style is pretty simple, so we'll be sticking to the default shapes whenever we can. You'll be shocked how good a couple of circles can look after you make a body, a head, an eye, 1, 2, 3, 4 legs, a mouth, some shading. Oh wow, he's done! Let's make some nice scenery for them to walk around in too. Now, since this was the first Pokemon of the challenge, I didn't want the animation to be too crazy. We're gonna ease ourselves in. After all, this was my first full body character animation ever. Yeah, you see why I said this would be a hard challenge? Taking it into After Effects, we're going to use the body as a parent and link everything up to it. So whenever the body moves, the rest of Trapinch moves as well. All we have to do now is use some rotation to make the legs waddle back and forth, have him nod up and down, and we're already 90% of the way there. If he's walking, he has to move forward a bit too. So we take the body from here and move the end point to here. We can animate a few of the background pieces to make it feel a bit more lively, and there you have it. Trapinch animation complete. Watching it back now, there's a few very simple things I changed to make the animation feel a lot more natural. We should have changed the anchor points on the legs and the head from here to here. Right now, he's not really walking from the correct position, and the head isn't really nodding naturally. Change the anchor points though, and mwah, much better. Oddish is such a cute little guy, but most importantly, they're just a circle, 2 long circles, and 5 long pointy circles. Now if we just add in the face and some shading, that's the illustration basically as good as done. Since this one was so simple, how about we add a little tree in the background, give them somewhere nice to hang out. Now, how do we want to animate this? Well, if we make these all into separate layers, we can bring this into everybody's least favorite program, After Effects. Let's link the eyes and the leaves to the body. So whenever the body moves, the rest of the stuff doesn't just stay there floating in the sky menacingly. For Oddish's animation, what parts do we have to work with? Leaves, eyes, body, and feet. Let's make the leaves float in the wind with some wave warp, have the eyes look from side to side, and have the body squatting down as the little feet bouncing back up. And just like that, look at the little fella go! I'm also gonna add one more rule here. We have to try and make every single animation loop perfectly. I just think it's really satisfying seeing cool animations loop on and on and on forever. And it will also challenge us to think a bit more carefully about how everything moves, because we're gonna have to make sure that the start points and end points are the exact same now. But of course, this will make for some much more seamless animations. Now this is an interesting one. I know how to draw cat girls, but actual cats? That's a whole different ballpark. I know this little weirdo likes to walk around on 2 feet, but we'll have them sat down like a regular cat for this one. The head and the facial features were actually pretty simple, especially since my style is very head-on and symmetrical, but my style came back to bite me in the ass as soon as we moved on to the body. Yeah, I had 1 day to draw and animate this. Some Pokemon just look cursed as hell facing forward, and you're gonna just have to deal with it. Just be happy that at least I made Trapinch facing sideways. Since the body took me so long to try and get right, we're keeping the animation simple here, by only animating the head, face, and tail. The tail just needs its anchor point moved, so when we rotate it, it actually makes sense. The head can shake from side to side in sync with the tail, and for the finishing touch, we'd have the Purrloin wink. It just feels like a very in-character thing to do. This is just done by drawing the actual eye closed and then keyframing a mask so it looks like it's opening and closing. Meow! Oh yeah, we made a loop too. How fitting is it that we get to animate the little art dog in our little art challenge? Smeargle was actually really fun to draw. I really like how the face turned out, but feet will be forever awful to draw. Plus, it was actually quite tricky getting his little paintbrush tail to go in front of him and behind him all on different layers. It was all worth it though, because once we bring these layers into After Effects, we can easily make him flick his little paintbrush up and down with the use of the puppet pin tools. More on these later, but they essentially let you animate flat PNGs by locking certain places in point while letting you move around others. Honestly, one of the best tools in all of After Effects. Let's also move his hands a little so the animation makes a bit more sense. This is just playing around with the position. A quick little eye blink, and there you have it. I wonder what he's painting. Now, I like Dusclops as much as the next guy, but there's one crucial element to this Pokemon's design that has made it so much harder to draw than all the other ones so far. Hands. The body, no issue. Weird little hairpiece, just dandy. But the hands, these hands are throwing hands. I tried to use my own hands as reference, and this is the best I could get them after too many tries. At least this is saved by the animation. You can't have a large, menacing red eye and not have it glow, so of course we added some glow to it, and then added some wave up to all the wavy bits because you can't have all the wavy bits not be wavy. And now my favourite part, the hands. I made them slowly move around in an unnatural way to make it feel all creepy and spooky until BAM! He is now inside your nightmares. This one doesn't loop perfectly, but that's just because the hand jump scare is just funnier. Of all the Pika clones, why the one that's basically a two-parter? I wonder if there's anybody that loves mining but just fucking hates Plusle. Anyway, I digress, let's get on to the drawing. The face was pretty straightforward, mainly just using the same basic shapes that we've come to know and love over the past few animations. But the body though, that's where things got a little bit awkward. I think I elongated the mouse a little bit too much, and for that, I am sorry. Now, let's make this elongated rodent move. We're gonna puppet pin this bad boy, so any parts that are protruding out of the body are gonna be easy targets. Starting with the ears, we can have them wiggle back and forth if we put a point at the end of the ear here, and a few more here at the base to keep the rest of the body firmly in place. We'll do the same for the arms, then some basic position movement for the eyes, and a little bit of rotation on the tail. Finally, let's add a bit of flair to this one. If we make a path like so, add some turbulence place to make it all wiggly, add trim paths with keyframes like so, and add a bit of glow. Here we have our own electricity for our own little electric cheerleader. And the best part, it loops. Looking back at it now though, the electricity doesn't really fit the rest of the style because it doesn't have the same bold outline as everything else, and the colours also aren't as flat as everything else. At least by itself it still looks kinda cool, but I'll definitely do my best to make sure that everything is more cohesive next time. Officially 1 week in at this point. I think doing anything for a whole week straight makes you pick up on a lot of time-saving tips and a lot of little strategies, so far, so good. With Turtwig, I think we're going to tackle it the same way that we did Trapinch. Turtwig was never meant to look right at you. Turtwig is a leafy dude, so let's start off with the easiest way to make leaves in Adobe Illustrator. Oval, pointy handle, green, leaf. It's really that easy sometimes. Of course, it will be more interesting once we add the shading and the animation, but sometimes that's all you need to start. Also, work smarter, not harder. If your designs are anything like mine, don't make 4 separate legs, make a single leg and then just duplicate it, for your own sake. And this is kinda off topic, but does Turtwig look like sushi to anybody else? Animation time. This is pretty much going to be the same as our Trapinch one. Separate your layers, parent everything to their respective body parts, rotate those body parts, and you've got the basics locked down. But don't be like me and forget to move the anchor points though. They should be moved from the middle to here. Also, I forgot to loop this one because I based it on the Trapinch one, which also didn't loop, but trust me, I'll remember for the future. When you're attempting to animate 30 Pokemon in 30 days, sometimes a blue tadpole is just what you need to get you through the day. Illustrating Poliwag is so fun, just look how simple it is. It's just a basic circle with 2 points moved down, a white circle in the middle, and a circle grid. Take away lines from this, circle spiral. This is literally just layering shapes in a way that looks nice. Keep doing the same for the mouth and eyes. Pair this up with some super simple shading and we can take this into After Effects to animate. Let's have his little feet kicking about while he's sitting on top of the rock, with the tail wagging back and forth and his weird little spiral intestines swirling around. All the background animation is just a bit of wave warp, timed out so it loops perfectly. I think this is taking the spot for my favourite animation so far. I also wonder how many times it's going to change throughout the course of this challenge. Compared to some of the other Pokemon we've had to do so far, Sylveon is actually kinda complicated by comparison. But I love Sylveon's design, so if we can pull it off, this just might be the best one so far. While a lot of the shapes were more complex than usual, we still used the regular method of make a shape, edit that shape until it becomes the shape that we need. Like, look at how we made this bow. This is just a rectangle in disguise. You can't fool me! Same for the ears. If these were green, they'd just be leaves. Illustrator is all about shapes. Adding in them big old blue eyes and a mouth, and that's the head done. Follow the same principles with the body and we can move on to the animation. And just to show you that my art is far from perfect, do you want to see what the body looked like before we settled on this? Art is hard, give yourself time. Looking at our illustration, can you count how many things we have to animate here? 10! The tail wiggles up and down, the head rotates back and forth, the bow on the head rotates, the neck bow rotates, the hair ribbon wiggles, the eyes blink, the stars scale in and rotate, the moon rotates, the background ripples, and the flowers dance! Put it all together though, and this is the outcome. I'm super happy with this one. Christ, that's a lot of layers. But if you subscribe, I'll do it again with 1,000 layers! Okay, that would kill me, but please do sub if you found this funny or helpful so far. More reach makes it more justifiable for me to do more silly challenges like this. Everyone's favourite breedable blob. Just like always, we start off with a circle, but this time I'm throwing away half the circle and only editing points on one side until they get nice and Ditto-like. Basically, just making a few incredibly smooth limbs. Let's duplicate it and flip it. That's looking about right. A couple eyes, a happy little mouth, and now we can get onto animating. Call me lazy all you want, but this is Ditto. He's a funny wiggly blob, so I'm gonna make him wiggle around with my favorite tool, Wave Warp, all the while he blinks every few seconds while staring directly into your soul. Gotta love Ditto. Gengar is everyone's favourite purple blob, and him being a little blob makes him super easy to illustrate. I'll start off with making half the body. That includes the hands and the tiny fingers, and ooh, here is a great tip for making eyes. Make a circle, cut off the top point, rotate it 45 degrees, and ooh, angry eyes. We can also use a similar method for making the smile. Circle, cut off the top, connect it back up, then just curve a few points, add some lines for teeth, and there you have it. after we touch up a couple things, we can move on to After Effects. If we move the arms up while moving the body down, it looks kinda like he's crouching up and down. Let's add a menacing glow to the eyes, and then to make it a bit more interesting, we can have him float around, leaving an after image after he moves. This is quite literally just the outline of Gengar with different colors, set to different sizes and different timings. Simple effects for a pretty damn cool outcome. If I was to change anything to this now, I would make the floating movement a bit less static. Right now, bro is floating around like this. I'd still say it's a pretty solid attempt for day 11, but it's always good to know what you can improve on. I'm actually really happy we got Porygon 2 here. There's so many cool things that we can do because of its whole virtual nature, so this one is going to be very interesting. This is one of the best examples of a just draw circles until it's done type Pokemon. Like, obviously it takes a while to get used to how Illustrator works, but considering we are only 12 days into a 30-day challenge, I think we're doing pretty well so far. Just add the closest shape to the shape that you need, keep merging and smoothing out points until your virtual dock is all wrapped up. And as always, don't forget the shading. Now, Porygon 2 obviously needs a place to stay, so let's make a nice little PC box for him to chill in. We're gonna use the iconic Windows 95 UI for reference. For the animation, let's have the PC sort of collapse down piece by piece, having all the different UI elements pop in. And then for Porygon, I mean, he is in the screen. I personally think it would be kind of funny if we just had him go from side to side to side, like the old DVD logo, until he hits a corner, and then the PC can collapse itself back up for a perfect loop. This is easily the best background we've made for any of them so far. Shouts out to Porygon 2 for real. Yet again, we have a new hardest Pokemon to draw in this challenge. I thought a forward-facing Luxray would be incredibly cursed, so I challenged myself to try and draw it from the side. You already know I'm awful at that, but it wouldn't be much of an art challenge if I didn't challenge myself, I guess. Luxray's design is a bit more complicated than what I'm used to, so let's just start off simple by making the head. Rather than using the shape tools like we normally do, we're better off just pen tooling this one because unfortunately this is not an available option in the shape menu. Maybe they'll add it in the next update though. Luckily we can still make the facial features pretty easily. Even though we're just using a bunch of circles for the facial features, you can already tell this design is so much more complicated than a lot of the Pokemon that came before it. Now for the main problem. The body. Just trust the process, okay? This ain't ideal, but after we touch up a little bit and add in the legs, which took surprisingly long, and the tail, it's starting to come together. Now, time to animate. Here, we'll set up some puppet pins, so we can set one keyframe here, another one here, copy and paste the first one here, ease, and you've got a loop. For the lightning in the background, this is just what we did for Minun's lightning, but this looks a lot better here because it's actually in the background. Dewott is a banger middle evolution, so I'm super excited for this one. The head and the face are pretty standard procedure. You know how we like our shapes around here. But the body? Let's just say it got a little bit phallic, for lack of a better term. Luckily he covers up with his shorts later on, because if he didn't, this would not look great. Time for my favourite part, the shell. It's not super complicated, but it just goes to show how easily you can make some common objects just by adding some extra lines to a really simple shape. Also, the shell is what makes him so cool. Have you seen him in the anime? Let's make a thumb in front of the shell so it looks like he's actually holding the shell. And now we can move on to the animation. We made his pupils a separate layer so we can make him blink easily. And for the body movement, we had his arms move in opposite directions as the tail wagged up and down. We also had the bubbles popping, but first, you know, see something cursed? Back to the bubbles. These are basically just a PNG following a path. When they get to the end of that path, they scale down to 0 as a repeater comes out to give it that sort of popping look. Oh yeah, did I mention that yet again we have another perfect loop? This almost feels like cheating because it's so easy, but I'm not gonna argue with it. Circle, line, 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 line. Whoa, we're done! Animating a ball may sound easy, but he's not a fun squishy ball. He's a hard, not squishy ball, so we're kinda limited in what we can do here, but let's give it a go. We all know Electrode's main goal is to blow up. I didn't know how to animate an explosion though, so I just did what every single After Effects user does and just found a tutorial on YouTube. Go to Easy After Effects for the full breakdown, but it's essentially just shape layers with the edges roughened, optics compensation for the lens distortion, and then a choker to get rid of all of it when it's all done. I also needed some smoke for the aftermath, so I used my best friend Wave Warp along with a few other effects to get that cool rising smoke look. Now, looking back after making it, I have to admit I did composite this horribly, but as part of a 30-day animation challenge, I think it's just barely passable. Aye, a hot take here, but Flapple absolutely clears Appleton. Appleton ain't got nothing on this. Bro can literally fly with apple wings. There is no competition here. Now, Flapple might look hard to draw, and that's because he kinda is, but we're gonna draw him in a way that makes it easy for us to animate him flying in place. Starting with the wings, this is a lot of freehand pen tooling, but as long as you have some sort of reference to look at, you can never go that wrong. The body is just a long rectangle with a few more apple pieces just freehanded around it, and it's looking pretty decent so far, albeit incredibly cursed with no face. That's better. Some funny little arms here, and now we can make him fly. You'll notice that the body and the wings are on two different layers. This is because we're going to use rotation to animate the wings, a simple up and down loop like this, and we're going to use puppet pins to animate the body just like this. Now if we position Flapple up and down, it looks like he's flying. We might as well move the bottom apple too to make it go from side to side, getting a few more layers involved. And finally, a cheeky bit of blinking, so he's not just staring directly into your soul, making you feel bad about eating that one McDonald's apple pie. And that's Flapple. We even made some of the background elements move, and just like usual, another perfect loop. Everybody loves this round little guy, so I gotta make sure that I don't mess him up. Rowlet, as everyone knows, is born as a brown rectangle. Curve the top 2 points, bring upper point at the bottom, curve the bottom 2 points. Here we can do our quick leaf trick by turning an oval into a pointy oval. Big ol' circles in the middle for the face, easy beak in the middle with an oval with a couple of eyes either side. Next is the squiggly suit. I'm not a bird man, I don't know what this is called, somebody please let me know in the comments. We could use the leaf trick but orange to make some little bird feet, and now for my favourite part, the wings. 1, 2, 3 circles. Merge them, duplicate, and done. Just how cool is that? For the animation, we just needed to parent everything up to the body so it would all move together, and then we could animate as much or as little as we like. Personally, I want the wings to flap up and down with some rotation and then have the bow spin around. Look how cute that is! The little face can also subtly rotate as the eyes blink. This might have to be my favourite animation so far. I think the spinning bow really ties it all together for me. Admittedly, I've never seen Marshadow in game before. I'm not a massive Gen 7 guy, sue me. But he's got to be one of my favourite mythicals of all time. He's so compact you could just fit him in your pocket, it's so cute, I love him. Also, he's got 2 forms, so let's try and incorporate both of them. Now clearly, Marshadow isn't super complicated, but there are some very intricate parts of the design that we want to get just right, just like the little hair helmet, because we're going to use it in both the base Marshadow and the Zenith form Marshadow. Here, we use the curvature tool. It's like an automatically curvy pen tool for all the hair pieces plus all the other wavy pieces, and then kept everything in the exact same place for the other form so they will be directly on top of each other, making it as easy to animate as possible. Speaking of animation, we're stepping up our game now, making this one as dynamic as we possibly can. Marshadow needs some kind of trigger before transforming, or the transformation is going to look a bit awkward. So we're going to have him raise both of his arms in rotation, have him drop both of them back down, have them raise just one while the eyes glow, and then BAM! All I did here for the shake effect was just pre-comp all of Marshadow's layers together and then move it around in a little circle with a camera lens blur. The waviness of the clouds on him also get a lot more intense whenever he shifts forms, which I thought was a really nice touch. Now me, I'm personally a big Skitty fan and Delcatty fan. I think they're both hella underrated, but maybe I just think the cat designs are the coolest designs, I don't know. For this one, we're trying something new yet again, some frame-by-frame animation. All the other animations have used puppeting or rotation for the animation, but this time we're gonna draw out a big old smile and animate it frame by frame. But first, we have to make the head. It still shocks me how quickly we can carve out a Pokemon and make it recognizable just from a few basic circles. Alright, time for the mouth. Frame 1 will be fully closed and frame 4 will be fully open, so we need to just draw both of those and then the 2 in between frames. Sequence them together and look how easy that is. Notice how I'm doing only 4 frames and only on the mouth? I have the utmost respect for animators doing 24 frames for entire characters plus backgrounds for a single second of animation. I salute you. Okay, so there is definitely an easy way to do this, but the way that I did it here is set up all the mouths together, make the one that I want to see at 100% opacity and the others at 0, and then line them up like so. A little bit of a head and tail rotation, and boom! That is one happy cat. And the best part, it loops perfectly. Now, I like Heatran as much as the next guy, meaning I have absolutely no strong feelings towards Heatran whatsoever, but this guy looks weird up front. How the hell are we gonna make this work? Starting with the head, and this is already one of the most complicated Pokemon we've had to do so far. There are just so many pieces to slot together, but eventually I think it ended up turning out alright. Now at first, I was gonna have him facing sideways. Yeah, so making Heatran face head on was a bit awkward with the perspective, but luckily it had some pretty decent reference images to work with, so it didn't end up as cursed as I thought it would. Using so many thick outlines with the amount of lava spots Heatran has was a little bit hard to do, but I think we managed to squeeze in just enough to the point where you can still tell that it's Heatran. And now, the animation. This was a bit of a ball ache to draw, so we're gonna keep the animation simple. Let's have the body bounce up and down, as the top of the legs do too, so it looks like he's crouching. This one's simple, but hey, another perfect loop. I've always felt kinda bad for Cubchoo. Bro has a permanent cold and evolves into Beartic. Imagine being Beartic! But I'll still try and make something cool for this one. Now this might not look like a circle, but trust me, everything comes from a circle. Even you. 2 more for the ears, and that's your Cubchoo head. Cubchoo is quite a sad bear because of his constantly runny nose, so I'll make sure to channel that sadness here, as well as including his famous snotty nose. Fun fact, the snot is actually Cubchoo's source of energy. Who knew? On the animation side of things, we're going to have it so when he moves his head one way, the snot will go the opposite way to keep the movement realistic. This is just rotation on the head and puppet pinning on the snot. We'll even include a big sniff at the end like he's trying to suck it back in. For the rest of the animation, we'll just have the arms timidly crossing over, animate the background elements, and boom! A perfect, snotty, snowy loop. Hisuian Zorua is absolutely adorable but so sad. I don't want to have to look at a sad Zorua for hours while I make this. The sacrifices I make for art. Starting off with the ears, we're going to make a little mountain out of a triangle in the pen tool, then round out the edges and curve out the sides to make it feel a bit more natural. Another triangle for the inside, with a line through the top and a splash of pink to finish it off. If we make a leaf shape and merge it with a circle, that gives us Zorua's whiskers. Then the eyes, eyebrows, nose, stylish but admittedly kinda goofy hair, scarf, body, and boom! Let's animate this bad boy. There are a lot of wavy bits sticking out, so we're gonna start off by adding some wave warp to get some flowy animation going. Next up, the ears. I'm sure Zorua will be twitching around in the snow, so let's have the ears wiggle back and forth with a bit of rotation. I made a bunch of layers for the eyes in Illustrator, so if we line them all up correctly, we can get a nice, smooth blinking animation. And finally, let's pair everything up to the head, so we can have it bop up and down a bit. I decided to make some snow for the atmosphere, and of course, we're keeping up tradition with another perfect loop. Buneary holds a special place in my heart. Did anybody else have those little Pokemon Finger Puppet toys as a kid? Because I remember having so many of them and I distinctly remember playing with the Buneary one all the time. Let's do him proud. Buneary's most distinct feature has got to be the ears, right? Well, this is just a rectangle with some of the points moved in, another rectangle inside, and my favourite part, you see the fluff over here? Just get 6 circles like so, merge them, and you're done. For the body, we're going to be really cheeky and just steal the fluff from the ear. It's a really fun exercise seeing how you can reuse shapes in other areas. Now, let's animate this rabbit. Notice how we have one ear extended and one rolled down? Let's make him alternate just like in the anime. I set up 4 separate layers in Illustrator and then sequenced them like this. There is definitely a much quicker and easier way to do it than this though. Let's bounce the bunny up and down with some puppeting on the body and some rotation on the feet. Then finally, let's make her blink by lining up the frames of her eye animations like so. Originally, I made the animation less than a second because I wanted to make it a high quality GIF to post to Twitter, but here it just completely ignores one of the key principles of animation. Timing! This is going way too quickly. So let's extend the animation a little bit and slow things down. Now that is one happy rabbit. I'm so happy we got Spiritomb here because it's one of the coolest ghosts out there and you can't deny that. Now the base is pretty simple. You just got a square with some of the points pushed in and everything rounded and a bit of pen tool for the face. But the actual face? This might look complicated, but trust me, it's gonna knock your bloody socks off. If we make a circle and apply a rounded zigzag effect, we can make it look like this. Then for the pointed edges, we just get some triangles rotated around a point in the middle, merge it all together, and bam! I'm so happy with this already. A bit more zigzagginess for the evil grin. A circle cut out of another circle for one eye and then the spiral tool for another. More circles, a bit of shading, and we can finally move on to the animation. As you all know, Spiritomb is trapped inside the keystone. So let's start off with Spiritomb not even on screen. We can have the keystone glow like it's being awakened, but we still need somewhere to get it from this to this. Some kind of transition. Typically, we see some kind of dynamic zigzag coming out or a spooky spiral out. So let's make a zigzag shape like this and apply trim paths so it looks like it's coming out from behind the keystone. Now, if we add a twist to this, it will start twisting in a clockwise spiral. So when the actual Spiritomb comes in, it can continue in the same motion. But we still need the actual Spiritomb face to get on screen. So let's keep up with the ghosty aesthetic by having it scale in with some turbulent displace. It looks much better with it than without it. Now we can scale up the green dots, fade in the face, and finally add that much needed rotation. Now to get that perfect loop, let's put some turbulent displace at the end of the animation to slurp up the face back into the keystone. Voila! This might be my favorite one yet again. It's really cool seeing how many little techniques we managed to pick up and incorporate over this past month. This one should be easy, because I am Mimikyu! For our spooky friend, let's start off with a spooky circle. You know how it goes already. Then we can make some fun jagged ears because Mimikyu is all raggedy and asymmetrical. For the eyes, Illustrator has a bunch of different built-in brush styles, and this one here fits Mimikyu's aesthetic perfectly. So we can apply that to the eyes as well as everything else on Mimikyu's face. Looking at the body, this is just a lumpy box with triangles, which was surprisingly easy to make. And for the tail, we can just do the exact same thing we did for the ears. Add some shading and we can move on to the animation. If we're going to animate this cooler Pikachu, we need to include what it's most known for. The scary ghost hands that come out from inside the costume, and the busted form. Yes, that is the actual name for the form whenever you break the disguise. First we'll need some puppet pins so we can shake Mimikyu around like it's getting ready to attack. Then we'll need a square track mat over the eyes, so they go from this to this. The spooky hands start off really stupid, like if you hide Mimikyu they look like this. But that's some exclusive behind the scenes stuff that you don't actually have to see in the final animation. To make the hands come out, I just scaled the width out and added some wiggly effects to make it more ghost-like. Next, if we just kind of wiggle the whole thing about for a few frames, first of all, it looks creepy, and second of all, it gives us an excuse to draw back in the hands and collapse the head. Let's put it back to normal, and there you have it. Another one of the best spooky Pokemon perfectly looped. Okay, we might have a problem here. You guys have seen my art style by now. You've probably gathered that I'm more of a shape manipulator than a traditional knows how to actually draw with fundamentals type guy. Totodile is bipedal, so drawing him directly from the side like Luxray or Turtwig would be kinda weird because you'd only see a single leg. I straight up just don't know how to draw at 3/4 angles. Quite frankly, they just don't make sense to me and there are not enough hours in a single day of this challenge for me to fully comprehend it. I'm drawing Totodile facing forward. This is our best bet, isn't it? Alright, the top half of the face is easy enough, it's fine. Totodile has a weirdly angular face, but after slowly layering together a bunch of different shapes, it started to come together. It just goes downhill from here though. First of all, we have to finish the head by adding the rest of the mouth. And goddamn, Totodile with no teeth is so cursed, I hate this so much. Also, Totodile with some teeth is still cursed. Totodile with all teeth though, I can live with this. Now, we have to create this with the animation in mind, so we have to draw him facing us and also make sure his mouth is in two different pieces so we can make it open and close. The body looks a little silly and so do the hands, plus we accidentally gave bro some thick ass thighs because of the weird angle, but after we added the shading, not too bad. I'm just dreading the animation. So, we separated the mouth into two separate layers so we can have it chomp from open to closed, but the problem is with the perspective when you try and close the mouth from the front. I only had one day to make this, I swear this is the best I could get it. I do think the method was actually kinda clever though. We moved the top jaw down and we scaled the height of the bottom jaw to give the illusion of the mouth opening and closing. The execution could have definitely been improved though. We also made him blink too, and hey, that looks good at least. To distract from the horrifying mouth, we also had him bounce up and down while waving his arms, resulting in an animation that looks like this. Forward-facing Totodile should not exist. While it's not my favorite, I do still think that given my limited skill set, it's still possible. Like, if this was a university assignment, it wouldn't be top grades, but I still wouldn't have to retake the class. This has made me realize though that I am severely lacking in knowing how to draw different angles, so at least I learned something from this. Honestly, I would die for Wooper. Look how fucking cute they are! Also, check out these cool tricks! Talk about the duality of mankind! They have a pretty simple design, but this time I can show off some cool tricks that I haven't shown before. After we make that big old round head, it's time to make the gills. Yes, these are gills, and yes, I only just now found out about this because I almost refer to them as antlers. To make these, just draw a line with the pen tool, then bring up the whip tool and cinch those gills until they look like a triangle. Now round out the corners, add a stroke and repeat for the rest of the branches. Little eye here, little eye there, and let's give him a big ol' smile. There are no thoughts in that brain whatsoever. The body is just a rectangle with some points moved and rounded, the feet are just some ovals. Ooh, do you remember that one Wooper with a heart in the anime? If you get two rectangles together like this, merge them and round out the corners, they look so good! Quick tail and some shading and we can move on to the animation. Axolotls are just water dogs, so we're gonna have the tail wagging up and down with a bit of rotation. Also, if you're wondering why it's so smooth, that's because the speed graph looks like this. Wooper is practically jumping for joy, so let's parent everything up to the body so we can have it bounce up and down. We don't have the head dislocate now, do we? Both the feet and the gills could do with a bit of subtle rotation to bring it to life a little bit more. And we can keyframe the height of the eyes to go from this to this, to this, and if you do it quick enough, it looks like it's blinking. Because I love Wooper so much, I went ahead and drew not 1, but 4 frames of mouth movement. A daunting task, I know. Let's sequence it so it starts off closed, holds there for a bit, opens up, holds there for a bit, and then goes back to the original. And there you have it, one incredibly happy, perfectly looping Wooper. And again, this just might be my favorite animation yet. Chimchar was my first ever Pokemon. He is the fire monkey. But drawing a fire monkey is scary because of these and these. I don't want to do that. But I guess we have to learn, so let's just get on with it. Chimchar has a surprisingly complex design. Normally I can just draw a circle for the head and call it a day, but I had to chisel this monkey from scratch with my bare hands. Also, the fire on its head, turns out it's kinda hard to make it not look like an actual literal piece of shit, so we're already not off to the best start. Once we had the head shape down, the actual facial features were all pretty easy. It was just stacking up a bunch of circles and squares until it turned into a monkey. The body was nice and simple, but the real trouble came after this. The hands. I will never comprehend these. Here you go, here is your finished Charmander complete with fiery tail and fiery background. Drawing Chimchar was hard, but when your files are organized, the motion design is always easier. Let's get the tail out of the way. Wave warp, boom, wavy fire. Next we can have the arms move about. Since they're already in a bit of a weird position, I think just rotating them in sync with each other is probably our best bet. If we puppet the body, we can have him crouch down like this and then get back up. And finally, if we take the eyes and squish them with some well-timed keyframes, it looks like Chimchar is blinking. He's a goofy little guy, but he's still kinda lovable. I don't absolutely love him, but I don't despise him either. What are the chances that we get to do Piplup right after Charmander? I also just realized this means we get to do every single single starter in this challenge. That's so cool. It's like its own mini collection. Depending on how you draw Piplup, it might start off looking like that one dude from the Backyardigans, but we're gonna just ignore that for now. Right now, we're just blocking up the different sections of color we need for the face, adding some eyes, and that's the head done. If you ever have a Piplup head without the body and just a little feather cape, it looks like a really fucked up Kirby. Quick rectangle for the body, a few blue leaf-like shapes for the arms, little oval feet, a little bit of shading, and that is our Piplup completed. The animation on this is going to be really simple. Head, rotate it side to side. Arms, rotate them up and down. Feet, rotate them side to side. And finally, we give him a cute little blink by squishing the eyes but doing it really quickly so it doesn't look weird. And that's our Piplup vibing out, giving us a little wave. Another perfect loop. Only one more left. I'll be completely honest, by this point I was kinda burnt out, but when you're this close to the end, you can't just give up. We've grown so much over the course of this challenge, so it's gonna take a pretty damn complicated Pokemon for the final animation to turn out like shit. Okay, so you know how I said these were all randomly generated? Well, it started out like that, but I thought it would be fun to take a viewer suggestion for the final Pokemon, so I made a tweet saying the most liked reply will be the final Pokemon of the challenge. This is why you don't trust people to give you suggestions. Not just Giratina, but both forms fully animated? This got the most likes in the thread by far, and you might just be thinking, oh, just do the second most liked one, it'll be fine. The second most liked one is by the same person, and they said to animate every single Deoxys form with Deoxys fighting Rayquaza! Fuck you, Frank, I know you're watching this! This was in October, by the way. Originally, the challenge was going to be a single Pokemon animated for every single day of the month. October has 31 days, not 30, but I'm counting this as 2 Pokemon for my own sanity. I guess this is kinda fitting as the final boss of the challenge, so without further ado, the final illustrations and final animation. We're starting off with the head as per usual, trying to make sure that the complicated design doesn't get messed up by my style with the super thick outlines. So far, I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty damn happy with it, but this is the easy part. Now, there's the body. The outline just looks like a weird chest piece or Giratina with a really long tie. Since neither of those are what we're going for, I started adding the red stripes down the middle as well as adding in the golden claw ribcage thing. I'm actually really excited to show you guys how I did the wings. So you can see that I'm just kind of freehanding it with the curvature tool here, but when we're done, we're going to add the roughened effect to this to give it that pointy, distorted look that Giratina is known for. The red spikes are just triangles, so we can get those made pretty easily. Then, let's draw a leg and copy and paste it a few times, do a cheeky bit of shading, and that is Giratina altered form completed. Now, the origin form? I won't lie, this was difficult. The general outline just makes Giratina look like a string worm, so this was the biggest case of just trust the process I have ever had to endure. But, after you add in the little grey bits here, spend ages finessing the golden chest spikes, add in the rest of the stripes, add in the rest of the spikes, and make some new zigzaggy wings. These were very fun to make, by the way. That's the origin form done. And if you're wondering why we kept the head the exact same as it was in the other version, it's because I've got a little something special in mind for the animation. Let's begin with the easiest part, the wings. Just slap some turbulent displacement on those bad boys and watch them flow. Now we're going to puppet pin the front legs to bend down while we slide the entire body down, so when you play it back, it looks like he's crouching. The main reason I wanted to keep the head the exact same between both forms is because I made a few frames for the mouth animation. That's a good Giratina. Now, how do we transition from this to this? Let's make the eyes glow so you know something's about to happen, and then use a mixture of turbulent displace and rotation for a ghostly transformation. Don't forget to use motion blur, it helps hide the cut between the two compositions. Now, how do we animate Wiggly Worm Giratina? With Wave Warp, the Wiggly Worm effect. Now if we have the transition at the start and end of the composition, we can make it a perfect loop. Looking back at it, I could have definitely used some more puppet pins to get some cleaner, more precise movement, but at the time that didn't even cross my mind. I was just so relieved to get the final boss of this challenge completed. 30 days straight of illustrating and animating Pokemon. What can we take away from this? First of all, this is stupid to even attempt if you have a full-time job. I did this while completely unemployed and I still got burnt out near the end. Did I improve from day 1 to day 30? I actually did. So much so that this project got me a job with the same company that distributes Pokemon cards in the UK. Funny story about that though. So I actually did this project 2 whole years ago, and since then have been working in the industry doing motion design for 2 whole years. Up until a few weeks ago when I got laid off because my company got bought out by another company and made a whole bunch of people redundant. Why am I telling you this? Well, first of all, if you have a creative project that you want to do, just go ahead and start it. Even if it's stupid, seems way too big, or seems kinda small, just make something cool and you'll be happy that you did it. And hey, it might even get you a job like this one did. And for 2, well, considering I don't have a job anymore, I figured I'd do something equally as insane as animating Pokemon non-stop for a month straight. You saw the picture frame change. After a year of planning, I am so proud to unveil the grand opening of AuraStar.shop. I'm finally going all out and chasing my dreams of making cool stuff, selling it, and hopefully using that money to pay rent. How cool is that? Since you guys stuck around for the entire video, I'll be giving you an exclusive discount code AuraStar10. I have my own discount code now! For 10% off anything that you want to get. This has been in the back of my mind for 2 whole years. I'll see if I can find an old clip so I can play a little flashback for you guys. I looked into making my own like stickers and prints and all that sort of stuff. I looked into it a little bit. Turns out you do need to have a bit of investment to that, because fucking obviously. It's been in active production for most of this year, so when I tell you that I've gone all out for this, I mean, you just watched an entire hour of me doing something as insane as this, you know I can fully commit to a project. Losing my job was the final kick that I needed to get this fully finalized. I made stickers for my favorite Pokemon throughout the journey, just look how cool they are! I'll be selling these as a little water guy pack and a spooky guy pack, so if you like stickers, be sure to check them out. And we've also got a poster that took way too long to make, considering I already had all the assets done, but I'm so happy with how it's turned out. Just look how cool this is! For the poster, we've got all the Pokemon in order of the color spectrum, because it looks so much nicer than just having them in the order that we made them. All these plus some extra originals too, so I hope the code AuraStar10 does you well as a special thanks from me to you. I'm honestly not sure how long it will last, but while I'm out of a job, I'm going to try and make as many videos as I possibly can while managing the shop and commissions. And with that, I'll be off packing orders and thinking of an even stupider design challenge for next time. Join the Discord for a slightly less intense community design challenge. I'm on a bunch of socials linked below, and I'll see you in the next video very, very soon. Thanks so much for watching.